The glass door of Starbucks on Fifth Avenue swung open with a cheerful jingle, and Marcus Chen stepped inside, shaking raindrops from his wool coat. It was one of those dreary October afternoons in Manhattan where the sky looked like wet concrete and every puddle reflected the blur of yellow cabs racing past. He had 15 minutes before his next client meeting, just enough time for a double espresso and maybe a moment to scroll through the disaster that was his email inbox. The line moved slowly. Marcus pulled out his phone, thumbs already dancing across the screen, when a sound cut through the ambient noise of steaming milk and murmured conversations. A child's laughter. High-pitched, innocent, the kind that made strangers smile. Then another laugh joined it, and another, and another. Marcus glanced up, mildly curious. What he saw made his phone slip through his fingers and clatter on the tile floor. Standing near the pickup counter was a woman surrounded by 6 children, 6 identical children, 4 girls, 2 boys, all with the same honey blonde hair and sharp green eyes. They couldn't have been more than 5 years old, jumping and giggling as the woman tried to distribute juice boxes and cookies with the harried grace of someone who'd mastered organized chaos. But it wasn't the sextuplets that made Marcus's heart stop. It was the woman, Evelyn, his ex-wife, the woman he'd divorced 3 years ago because she couldn't have children. The woman whose tears had soaked their bedroom pillows for 18 months of failed fertility treatments. The woman who'd looked him in the eye and said she understood when he told her he needed a family, a real family. And she couldn't give him that. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and turn on notifications because this story takes a turn you won't believe. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. Marcus stood frozen, his polished Oxford shoes rooted to that coffee-stained floor. One of the little girls, wearing a pink dress with sparkly unicorns, tugged on Evelyn's sleeve. "Mommy, can we get the chocolate chip cookies instead?" "Mommy." The word echoed in Marcus's skull like a gunshot in an empty cathedral. Evelyn bent down, tucking a strand of hair behind the girl's ear. "We already got the oatmeal ones, sweetie. Remember, we're trying to eat healthier?" Her voice, her voice was exactly the same. Soft, patient, with that slight rasp that used to drive him crazy in the best possible way. Another child, a boy in a tiny Yankees cap, piped up. "But Mommy, oatmeal tastes like cardboard." "That's because you told Lily it was cardboard, dummy," one of the other girls said, crossing her arms. "Emma, we don't call people dummy," Evelyn said gently but firmly. "And Henry, oatmeal does not taste like cardboard. It tastes like love and whole grains." The children erupted into giggles again. Evelyn smiled, that same crooked smile Marcus remembered from lazy Sunday mornings and late-night conversations about dreams they'd never live. Someone bumped into Marcus from behind. "Hey man, you gonna order or what?" He stumbled forward, nearly colliding with the person in front of him. His brain felt like it had been thrown into a blender. Evelyn. His Evelyn. The doctors said it was impossible. Premature ovarian failure. Those were the exact words the specialist at Cornell Medical had used. 0 viable eggs. No chance of natural conception. They'd spent $37,000 on IVF. 3 rounds. 3 failures. Each one had carved a deeper wound in their marriage until there was nothing left but scar tissue and resentment. And now she was here, with 6 children, calling her mommy. Marcus's hands trembled as he picked up his phone. The screen had cracked, a spider web of fractures spreading from the corner. Fitting, he thought. Everything was breaking all over again. He should leave, walk out, pretend he never saw her. But his feet betrayed him, carrying him closer instead of toward the exit. He weaved through the crowd, heart hammering against his ribs like it was trying to escape his chest. "Evelyn," she turned, balancing 3 juice boxes in one hand and a paper bag of cookies in the other. For a second, maybe 2, her face went completely blank. Then recognition flooded her features, followed by something Marcus couldn't quite read. Surprise? Fear? Anger? Marcus! His name on her lips sounded strange, foreign, like a word from a language she'd forgotten how to speak. The children stopped their chatter, 6 pairs of curious eyes swiveling between their mother and this tall stranger in the expensive suit. I just... Marcus's vocabulary, usually so sharp in boardroom negotiations, had abandoned him entirely. I saw you and I... Mommy, who's that? The little girl in the unicorn dress asked, pressing herself against Evelyn's leg. Evelyn's hand automatically went to the child's head, a protective gesture that made Marcus's stomach twist. An old friend, Sophia. Just an old friend. Old friend. The words stung more than they should have. You have kids, Marcus said stupidly, stating the obvious because his brain couldn't process anything more complex. I do. Evelyn's voice had gone flat, guarded. 6 kids. Yes, Marcus, I can count. One of the boys tugged on her jacket. Mommy, I need to pee. Me too, another child chimed in. Okay. Evelyn shifted her grip on the juice boxes. We're going in just a second. Her eyes met Marcus's again, and this time he saw it clearly. She wanted him gone. It was good seeing you. We really have to go. Wait. The word came out too loud, too desperate. Several people in the coffee shop turned to look. Marcus lowered his voice. Please, How? The doctor said you couldn't. They said it was impossible. Something flickered across Evelyn's face. Pain, maybe, or was it satisfaction? Life finds a way, Marcus. That's what they say, right? But we really have to go. She was already herding the children toward the door, juggling snacks in tiny hands. Come on, guys, bathroom break. Then we're meeting Uncle David at the park. Uncle David. Marcus felt another stab of something ugly and possessive. Who the hell was Uncle David? He watched them leave, this impossible parade of blonde heads and colorful jackets. Evelyn didn't look back, not once. The door swung shut behind them, and Marcus stood in the middle of Starbucks like a man who'd just witnessed a miracle and a catastrophe simultaneously. His phone buzzed, his assistant. Mr. Chen, the Zhao meeting starts in 5 minutes. Are you on your way? Marcus stared at the text. The Zhao meeting. Right. The merger deal he'd been working on for 6 months. The meeting that could make him partner at his firm. None of it seemed to matter anymore. He typed back, cancel it. Then he was pushing through the door, out into the October rain, scanning the street for a glimpse of honey blonde hair. There, half a block down, heading toward the subway entrance. 6 little figures bouncing around one tall, slender woman who used to be his entire world. Marcus ran. Evelyn, wait! She didn't stop. If anything, she walked faster, ushering the children down the subway steps. Marcus caught up just as they reached the turnstile. Please, he panted, aware that he probably looked insane. Please, just talk to me. 5 minutes. Evelyn spun around, and for the first time, he saw real anger in her eyes. You don't get to do this, Marcus. You don't get to show up and demand answers after what you did. I know I don't, but I need to understand. One of the little girls started crying. Mommy, I'm scared. Evelyn immediately softened, kneeling down to comfort her daughter. It's okay, baby. Mommy's right here. This man isn't going to hurt anyone. She looked up at Marcus, her eyes hard. Are you, Marcus? He stepped back, hands raised. No, of course not. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to frighten them. Then let us go. Did you adopt them? The question burst out before Marcus could stop it. Is that what happened? After we split up? Evelyn stood slowly. For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then quietly she said, No, Marcus, I didn't adopt them. I gave birth to them. All 6, 1 pregnancy. Sextuplets. The world tilted. Marcus grabbed the subway railing to steady himself. That's not possible. The doctors said, the doctors were wrong. Her voice was ice. It happens. Medical mistakes happen. Misdiagnoses happen. Miracles happen. And you weren't there for any of it because you left me when things got hard. So no, you don't get explanations. You don't get closure. You get nothing. She swiped her card through the turnstile and pushed the children through, one by one. Marcus watched helplessly from the other side of the barrier. The train rumbled into the station below, drowning out whatever else Evelyn might have said. Then they were gone, swallowed by the underground darkness of the New York City subway system, and Marcus was left standing in the rain with his cracked phone and his shattered understanding of reality. He didn't go back to the office. Instead, he walked, block after block, soaking wet, past food trucks and construction sites and street vendors selling fake designer bags. His mind was a hurricane of questions, each one spawning 10 more. If Evelyn could have children, why hadn't it worked when they were together? Had she lied about the diagnosis? No, that was insane. He'd been there at the appointments. He'd seen the test results himself. Hadn't he? God, it was 3 years ago. Details were fuzzy. And sextuplets. The odds of naturally conceiving sextuplets were astronomical. Nearly impossible without fertility drugs. But if she'd done IVF after their divorce, she would have said so. She would have thrown it in his face. Wouldn't she? By the time Marcus made it back to his apartment in Chelsea, night had fallen and his suit was ruined. He stripped off his wet clothes and stood under a hot shower until the water ran cold, trying to wash away the feeling that his entire life had been built on a lie. He couldn't sleep. At 2 in the morning, he found himself on his laptop searching. Evelyn Chen, New York. Nothing useful. Evelyn Monroe, New York. She'd taken back her maiden name after the divorce. Still nothing but a LinkedIn profile that hadn't been updated in 4 years, listing her as a graphic designer at a small firm in Brooklyn. Sextuplets, New York. Pages of results, but none from 3 years ago. He tried different combinations, birth announcements, news articles, hospital records, though those were obviously private. Nothing. It was like Evelyn's pregnancy had never happened. How does someone hide sextuplets? Then again, maybe she hadn't hidden them. Maybe she just lived her life, and Marcus had been too busy rebuilding his own to notice. After the divorce, he'd thrown himself into work, 60, 70-hour weeks. He'd made junior partner in 2 years. He'd dated, though nothing serious, a few months here and there with women who were attractive and accomplished and utterly forgettable. Marcus slammed the laptop shut. This was crazy. He should just let it go. Evelyn had clearly moved on. She had 6 children and someone named Uncle David and a life that didn't include him. He had his career and his nice apartment and his plans to make partner by 40, except none of that felt like it mattered anymore. The next morning, gritty-eyed and caffeinated, Marcus did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He texted David Chen, his brother, who'd chosen Evelyn's side in the divorce and hadn't spoken to him since. "We need to talk. It's about Evelyn." The response came an hour later. "What about her?" "I saw her yesterday, with 6 kids. Her kids." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, "Meet me at Grimaldi's in Brooklyn. 7 p.m. And Marcus, don't you dare upset her again." The pizza place was crowded, filled with tourists and locals arguing over whether this was truly the best pizza in New York. Marcus spotted David in a back booth, looking older than he remembered. More gray in his hair, new lines around his eyes. "You look like hell," David said by way of greeting. "Thanks, you too." "I don't look like hell. I look distinguished." David took a sip of his beer. "You, on the other hand, look like you haven't slept in a week." "One night, but close enough." Marcus slid into the booth. "I need you to tell me what happened. Everything." David studied him for a long moment. "Why? So you can feel guilty, or so you can judge her some more? That's not fair, isn't it?" David leaned back, arms crossed. "You left her, Marcus, when she needed you most. You told her she was broken, that she couldn't give you what you wanted." "I never said she was broken." "You didn't have to. It was in every look, every sigh, every time you complained about another failed cycle. She felt it. And then you ended it because she couldn't produce children like some kind of—" David's jaw clenched. "I'm not doing this. I told myself I wouldn't get angry." "I loved her," Marcus said quietly. "Not enough." The words hung in the air between them. A waitress appeared, took their order, disappeared again. The noise of the restaurant seemed very far away. "Tell me what happened," Marcus said finally. "Please." David was quiet for so long Marcus thought he might refuse. Then he sighed, that heavy sigh that meant surrender. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Evelyn collapsed at work. Severe abdominal pain. They rushed her to the ER thinking it was appendicitis. Turned out she was pregnant. 12 weeks along. Marcus felt like he'd been punched. 12 weeks? But that would mean, yeah, she got pregnant right around the time the divorce was being finalized. Maybe even before. The timeline's a little unclear. But the diagnosis, the doctors said, were wrong. Apparently her hormone levels had been screwed up from all the fertility drugs. Once she stopped taking everything, her body regulated itself and got pregnant, spontaneously, naturally. David's voice was bitter. Funny how that works, right? All that money and stress and fighting, and all she needed was for you to leave. The words were meant to hurt, and they did. Marcus felt each one like a knife. And the sextuplets? Hyperovulation. It's rare, but it happens. Instead of releasing one egg, her ovaries release 6. All fertilized, all viable. David shook his head. The doctors wanted her to do selective reduction, said carrying 6 babies was too dangerous. But Evelyn refused, said she'd prayed for babies for so long, she wasn't going to choose which ones got to live. Marcus's throat felt tight. That must have been terrifying. It was. She was on bed rest from 20 weeks on. I moved in with her to help. She ended up in the hospital at 28 weeks. Emergency C-section. The babies were tiny, all of them under 3 pounds. They spent 2 months in the NICU. David's eyes were hard. And you know what? Through all of that, every moment of hell and fear and uncertainty, she never once said she wished you were there. Not once. The pizza arrived. Neither of them touched it. I would have come, Marcus said. If I'd known. Would you? Really? Or would you have demanded a paternity test first? Would you have accused her of cheating? Of lying? Because I remember how you were at the end, Marcus. How paranoid and cruel. I wasn't cruel. You told her she was wasting your time. You said you needed to find someone who could give you a family. How is that not cruel? Marcus had no answer. Because David was right. He had said those things. In the midst of their worst fights, when the fertility clinic bills were piling up and Evelyn was crying again, and his patience had worn through, he'd said terrible things. Things he'd told himself he didn't mean. Things he'd convinced himself were justified by his pain. Who's the father? The question came out before Marcus could stop it. David's expression turned cold. Seriously? You're going to ask that? I have a right to know if... You have no rights. Not anymore. But if you must know, there was no one else. Evelyn didn't date. Didn't even look at another man for a year after you left. She was too busy mourning her marriage. Then they're mine. Marcus's voice cracked. Those kids, they're mine. The silence that followed was suffocating. David stared at him like he was seeing something pathetic and small. You want me to confirm that? Fine. Yes, Marcus. Genetically, those children are yours. You want to know their names? Sophia, Emma, Lily, Oliver, Henry, and Benjamin. They just turned 3 last month. They like dinosaurs and Disney movies and bedtime stories. Sophia's afraid of dogs. Henry wants to be an astronaut. Lily won't eat anything green. They're smart and funny and beautiful, and they have no idea you exist. Each word landed like a physical blow. She never told them about me. What was she supposed to say? Hey kids, your dad is the man who abandoned me because he thought I was defective, and then I miraculously got pregnant. But he was already gone, so I raised you alone with help from your uncle? Yeah, that's a great bedtime story. I didn't abandon her. We got divorced. You left her when she needed you. Call it whatever you want. The result's the same. David stood up abruptly. I'm done. I shouldn't have agreed to meet you. Wait. Marcus grabbed his brother's arm. I want to see them. Talk to her. I need to. You need to leave her alone. She's happy now. The kids are happy. Don't ruin that because you suddenly have regrets. David pulled his arm free. Goodbye, Marcus. He walked out, leaving Marcus alone with cold pizza and a crushing weight on his chest. Around him, the restaurant buzzed with laughter and conversation. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that his world had just collapsed for the second time in 3 years. Marcus sat there for an hour, maybe 2. Then he paid the bill and walked out into the Brooklyn night. He didn't go home. Instead, he found himself on Evelyn Street. He didn't know how he knew where she lived. Maybe David had mentioned it once. Maybe he'd seen it somewhere in his late-night internet searching. The brownstone was modest but well kept, with flower boxes in the windows and a bright blue door. As he stood there, hidden partially behind a parked car like some kind of stalker, the door opened. Evelyn emerged carrying a bag of trash. She was wearing sweatpants and an old Columbia hoodie, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked tired, beautiful and tired. Marcus almost called out. Almost. But then another figure appeared in the doorway. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, holding one of the children, little Henry. The man said something that made Evelyn laugh, that real laugh Marcus remembered from before everything went wrong. The man leaned down and kissed her. It wasn't a long kiss, wasn't dramatic, just a simple, comfortable kiss of two people who belonged together. And it broke something in Marcus that he didn't know could still break. He turned and walked away quickly, before either of them could see him. Before he could do something stupid like demand to know who that man was. What right he had to kiss Marcus's ex-wife, to hold Marcus's son. Back in his apartment, Marcus poured himself a scotch, then another. He pulled up his phone and stared at Evelyn's contact information, her number unchanged after 3 years. His thumb hovered over the call button. What would he even say? I'm sorry? Too little. Too late. I want to meet my kids? They weren't his, not in any way that mattered. Biology was just biology. He hadn't earned the right to call himself their father. The man in the doorway. Uncle David, probably. Except that kiss hadn't been very uncle-like. Marcus threw his phone across the room, not caring when it hit the wall and left a dent. Nothing made sense. Nothing felt right. He'd built this perfect life for himself, convinced himself he'd made the right choice, and now it was all revealed as a house of cards built on sand. He didn't sleep that night either, or the next. By Friday, his assistant was looking at him with concern, asking if he was sick, suggesting he take a few days off. Marcus ignored her and pushed through client meetings with bloodshot eyes and hands that shook from too much coffee and too little food. On Sunday, he went back to the brownstone. Told himself he just needed to see them one more time, to confirm they were real, that he hadn't hallucinated this entire nightmare. He parked down the street and waited, feeling every bit the creep he'd become. Around 10 in the morning, they emerged, all of them. Evelyn and the 6 kids and the man from the doorway. They piled into a minivan, a chaotic parade of car seats and stuffed animals and children arguing about who got to sit where. The man drove. Evelyn rode shotgun, turning back periodically to settle disputes and distribute snacks. Marcus followed them. He told himself he'd stop, turn around, let them live their lives. But he couldn't. His car seemed to drive itself, staying 3 vehicles back, through Brooklyn streets to Prospect Park. He watched from a distance as they set up a picnic. The man, whoever he was, played soccer with the boys while Evelyn helped the girls build a fairy house from sticks and leaves. It was painfully, perfectly domestic. The kind of Sunday afternoon Marcus used to dream about when he and Evelyn first got married. One of the boys, Oliver, kicked the ball too hard. It rolled away from the picnic area, toward the trees where Marcus stood hidden like a coward. The man jogged after it, getting closer, closer until Marcus could see his face clearly. He froze. It wasn't David. This man was younger, maybe early 30s, with dark hair and an easy smile. And he looked familiar. Marcus's mind churned through memories, trying to place him. Then it clicked. James Whitmore, Evelyn's co-worker from the graphic design firm. Marcus had met him once, maybe twice at company parties. The guy had seemed nice enough. Quiet. Unassuming. The kind of person you forgot 5 minutes after meeting. James spotted Marcus standing there. His smile faded. For a second, they just stared at each other. Then James picked up the soccer ball and walked over. You're Marcus. It wasn't a question. Marcus nodded anyway. I've seen pictures. Evelyn showed me some old photo albums. James's tone was neutral, giving nothing away. You should leave, before she sees you. I just wanted to... Marcus trailed off. I don't know what I wanted. To ease your guilt? To check on her? To make sure she's suffering without you? James's voice hardened. She's not. She's happy. Happier than she ever was with you, if we're being honest. The words should have made Marcus angry. Instead, they just made him feel hollow. Are you, are you two together? Does it matter? I'd like to know if another man is raising my children. James's laugh was sharp and humorless. Your children? Is that what you think they are? Because I've been there for every birthday, every nightmare, every pediatrician appointment for the last 2.5 years. I've changed diapers and done midnight feedings and held Evelyn when she cried from exhaustion. Where were you? I didn't know they existed. And whose fault is that? If you hadn't left, if you hadn't given up on her, you would have been there. But you weren't. So no, they're not your children. Not in any way that counts. James stepped closer, his voice dropping. Go home, Marcus. Sign whatever legal paperwork Evelyn's lawyer sends you. Terminate your rights. Let her move on completely. I don't want to terminate my rights. Then what do you want? To show up 3 years later and play daddy? To confuse 6 kids who already have a stable, loving home? To make Evelyn's life harder than it already is? Marcus had no answer, because James was right. Showing up now would be selfish. It would hurt more than help. But the thought of walking away, of never knowing his children, of watching from a distance as another man lived the life Marcus should have had, made him want to scream. I just want to talk to her. That's all. She doesn't want to talk to you. Did she say that? James hesitated. That tiny pause told Marcus everything. It's implied. I'm not leaving until I talk to her. Marcus surprised himself with the firmness in his voice. Not until she tells me to go herself. They stood there locked in a silent battle of wills. Then James shook his head. Fine, but I'm coming with you. And the second she asks you to leave, you go. No arguments, no dramatics. Agreed? Marcus nodded. They walked back to the picnic area together. Evelyn saw them coming, and the color drained from her face. She stood quickly, positioning herself between Marcus and the children. What are you doing here? He wants to talk, James said quietly. I tried to. It's okay, James. Evelyn's voice was steady, but Marcus could see her hands shaking. Can you watch the kids for a minute? James nodded, shooting Marcus one last warning glare before heading back to the children. Evelyn led Marcus away from the picnic area to a bench overlooking the lake. You followed us. I know, I'm sorry. I couldn't stop thinking about them. About you. Marcus sat down heavily. About what I gave up. Evelyn remained standing, arms crossed. You gave up nothing, Marcus. You made a choice. You decided I wasn't worth the struggle, that our marriage wasn't worth fighting for, and now you're what? Regretting it? Want a do-over? I want to know my kids. No. The word was flat, final. You don't get that. You weren't there when I found out I was pregnant. You weren't there when I was terrified the babies wouldn't make it. You weren't there for the first words, the first steps, the first time they called someone daddy. Her voice broke on the last word. You don't get to show up now and claim them. They're biologically mine. So what? Biology means nothing. James has been more of a father to them than you ever could be. He loves them. He loves me. And we're building a life together, a real family, the kind you said you wanted. The confirmation hit harder than Marcus expected. So you're with him, James. That's none of your business. Are you going to marry him? Still none of your business. Evelyn's eyes flashed. But yes, next spring. The kids are going to be in the wedding. Sophia's already planning her flower girl dress. It's all they talk about. Marcus felt something inside him crumble. Do they know that James isn't their biological father? They know they have a biological father who isn't part of their lives. They don't know it's you, and if I have my way, they never will. Evelyn sat down finally, maintaining careful distance between them. What did you think was going to happen, Marcus? That you'd show up and I'd forgive you? That we'd be some happy, blended family? Life doesn't work that way. I thought... Marcus's voice was barely audible. I thought maybe there was a chance to fix what I broke, to be a father. You broke us 3 years ago. You can't fix it now. Evelyn's face softened slightly. I loved you, Marcus. God, I loved you so much. But that love died when you looked at me like I was defective, when you prioritized having children over having me. And I'm not going to resurrect it just because you're feeling guilty. It's not just guilt. Marcus stopped himself. Still what? Love me? Evelyn laughed, but there was no humor in it. You don't get to love me anymore. That ship sailed. Actually, you sank that ship with torpedoes and then set the wreckage on fire. They sat in silence, watching ducks glide across the lake. In the distance, Marcus could hear his children, laughing and playing. He'd never felt so close and so far from something simultaneously. I'm going to file for visitation rights, he said quietly. Evelyn's head whipped around. You wouldn't. They're my kids, Evelyn. Legally, biologically, they're mine. I have rights. Rights? Her voice rose. You have rights? What about their rights? Their right to a stable home? Their right not to be confused and traumatized by a stranger who shows up demanding to be called daddy? I'm not a stranger. I'm their father. No, you're a sperm donor. There's a difference. Evelyn stood abruptly. If you try to file for visitation, I will fight you. I will get the best lawyer money can buy. I will tell the judge exactly why you left. I will make sure everyone knows what kind of man you are. And you will lose, Marcus, because no court is going to give rights to a man who abandoned his pregnant wife. I didn't know you were pregnant. You didn't care enough to find out. The words echoed across the park. Several people turned to look. Evelyn lowered her voice, but the fury remained. You divorced me and moved on with your life. You don't get to come back now because things didn't work out the way you planned. My life worked out fine. Did it? Then why are you here? Why are you stalking your ex-wife and the kids you claim you don't want? Evelyn stepped closer. You know what I think? I think you're not here because you want to be a father. You're here because you can't stand that I'm happy without you, that I found love again, that I built the family you said I couldn't have. The accusation stung because part of it was true. Part of Marcus was angry that Evelyn had moved on so completely while he was still stuck, still circling the drain of their failed marriage. But only part. I want to know them, Marcus said quietly. Even if it's just supervised visits. Even if it's just an hour a week. I want to be in their lives. Please, Evelyn, don't take that away from me. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. You took it away from yourself. When you left. When you gave up. You did this, Marcus, not me. I know. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The words came out strangled. I was selfish and scared, and I made the worst mistake of my life. But please don't punish the kids because of my mistakes. Let me try to make it right. There is no making it right. There's only moving forward. And forward for me and my children doesn't include you. Evelyn wiped her eyes roughly. Go home, Marcus. Sign the papers my lawyer will send. Let us go. It's the only decent thing you can do now. She walked away, back toward the picnic area where James was helping Henry build a tower out of sticks and Sophia was dancing in circles, her blonde hair catching the sunlight. Marcus watched until they packed up and left, piling back into the minivan. He watched until they were just a dot in traffic. Then he sat on that bench for another 2 hours until the sun started to set and the park emptied, and a police officer gently suggested he move along. He didn't file for visitation. He wanted to. God, he wanted to. But every time he picked up the phone to call a lawyer, he heard Evelyn's voice. You took it away from yourself. She was right. He had no one to blame but himself. And forcing his way into his children's lives now would only cause pain. For them, for Evelyn, maybe even for him. So instead, Marcus signed the papers when they arrived. Termination of parental rights. A fancy legal term for giving up. He signed them in his office late at night with only his guilt and regret as witnesses. But he didn't mail them right away. For 3 weeks, the envelope sat on his desk. 3 weeks of staring at it, of picking it up and putting it down, of wondering if he was making another mistake, compounding the first one. Then one Saturday, Marcus found himself back in Prospect Park, not stalking this time, just sitting, remembering, torturing himself probably. He saw them again. Of course he did, because fate was cruel like that. The whole family, James and Evelyn, and the 6 kids, but this time there was someone else with them. A little boy, maybe 7 or 8, with James's dark hair and easy smile. Marcus watched as James introduced the boy to the sextuplets. Watched as Evelyn knelt down to his level, smiling warmly. Watched as the kids immediately absorbed this new person into their group, pulling him into their game of tag without hesitation. That's when Marcus understood. This wasn't about him. It had never been about him. Those children had a family, a loving, messy, complicated family that didn't include Marcus because he'd chosen to exclude himself. And they were thriving, happy, whole. He didn't need to be in their lives. They didn't need him. And maybe that was okay. Maybe that was how it was supposed to be. The consequence of his choices. The price of his mistakes. Marcus pulled out his phone and called David. His brother answered on the 3rd ring. "What do you want?" "I need you to give something to Evelyn for me." Marcus's voice was steady for the first time in weeks. "I'm mailing you an envelope. Make sure she gets it." "What is it?" "Closure. For both of us." Marcus hung up before David could respond. He walked to the nearest mailbox and dropped in the envelope with the signed termination papers. Then he added a letter. Just 1 page. Short. Simple. "Evelyn, I signed the papers. You're right about everything. I don't deserve to be in their lives. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I just want you to know that I hope you're happy, that I hope James is everything I couldn't be, that I hope the kids grow up knowing they're loved, and I'm sorry for everything. For not being strong enough, for not loving you the way you deserved, for not fighting harder. I'm sorry, Marcus." He stood there after the letter dropped, staring at the blue metal box. Then he turned and walked away. Not back to his apartment. Not back to his office. Just away. 6 months later, Marcus's assistant brought him mail. Among the usual bills and legal documents was a cream-colored envelope with his name written in elegant script. He recognized Evelyn's handwriting immediately. Inside was a wedding invitation. "Evelyn Monroe and James Whitmore request the honor of your presence." Marcus stared at it for a long time. Then he noticed something else. A photo. 6 children dressed in formal wear, grinning at the camera. On the back, in Evelyn's handwriting, they asked why they don't have a grandpa on Daddy's side. James told them his father passed away. It seemed kinder than the truth, but I wanted you to see them, to know they're okay. We're all okay. I forgive you, Marcus, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. Be well. Marcus put the photo on his desk where he could see it every day. A reminder of what he'd lost, what he'd given up, what he'd never get back, but also a reminder that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let go. Walk away. Let the people you hurt find happiness without you. It didn't make it hurt less, but it made it mean something, and maybe that was enough. Marcus didn't go to the wedding, but he sent a gift, a college fund for each child, anonymous, with a note that only Evelyn would understand, for their future, the one I won't be part of, but the one I'll always hope is bright. He never saw Evelyn again, never met his children, never held them or heard them call him Dad. He dated eventually, even got serious with someone, a lawyer named Catherine, who was smart and ambitious and didn't want kids. On the Sextuplets' 10th birthday, Marcus received another envelope. More photos, 6 smiling faces, older now, losing baby teeth and gaining freckles. Still unmistakably his, still completely not his. "They're doing great," Evelyn's note said. "Sophia loves art. Emma's in advanced math. Lily started piano. Oliver's on the soccer team. Henry wants to be a marine biologist. Benjamin never stops asking questions. They're happy, Marcus. That's what you wanted, right?" It was. Even if it killed him to admit it, the photos kept coming. Every year on their birthday, every milestone, first communions, middle school graduations, driver's licenses, college acceptances, each one a knife and a gift simultaneously. On what would have been his 60th birthday, Marcus received one last envelope, thicker than the others. Inside were 6 letters, 6 different handwritings, 6 different voices. "Dear Marcus, Sophia wrote. Mom told us about you, about what happened. I don't know if I can call you Dad, but I wanted you to know I don't hate you. I think I understand. Sometimes people make mistakes. Sometimes mistakes can't be fixed, but they can be forgiven. Emma's letter was shorter, more practical. Mom showed us the college fund. Thank you. It helped more than you know. I'm studying engineering at MIT. Maybe someday I'll design something that helps people like you and Mom. People who loved each other but couldn't figure out how to stay together. Lily's was poetic. We are the children born from endings, from goodbyes and what-ifs. We are proof that beautiful things can grow from broken soil. I hope you planted something beautiful with your life too. Oliver wrote about soccer and championships and how James taught him to be a good sport, to lose gracefully. Life's full of losses, he wrote, but also wins. You lost us. But maybe you won something else. I hope so. Henry's letter included drawings of marine life and facts about octopuses. Did you know they have 3 hearts? Maybe that's what you needed. More hearts, so when one broke, you'd have backups. Benjamin's letter was the one that broke Marcus. I wish I knew you. I wish things were different. But wishing doesn't change anything. Only actions do. And your action was walking away. I respect that. Takes courage to admit you can't be something. But it also takes courage to stay and try. I'm not sure which is harder. Are you? Marcus read the letters until he could recite them by heart. Then he wrote back. 6 letters, one to each child he'd never held, telling them about himself, about his mistakes, about their mother, about love and regret and the complicated mess of being human. He didn't know if they'd write back, didn't know if this was the beginning of something or just closure on old wounds. But for the first time in 20 years, Marcus felt like maybe he'd done something right. The response came 3 months later, an invitation, lunch with all 6 of them, no Evelyn, no James, just the kids. His kids, not his kids, both. Marcus stood outside the restaurant for 10 minutes before going in. His hands shook, his heart raced. He'd faced down hostile corporate takeovers with less fear than this lunch with 6 young adults who shared his DNA and none of his history. They were waiting at a large table in the back, all 6 of them, 22 years old, beautiful, brilliant, strangers with his eyes and Evelyn's smile. You came, Sophia said, standing to greet him. I wasn't sure you wanted me to. We weren't sure either, Emma admitted, but we figured it was worth a try. They talked for 3 hours about their lives, their dreams, their memories of growing up with James as their father. Awkward at first, then easier. They asked him questions, hard questions. Why did you leave? Did you ever love Mom? Do you regret it? Marcus answered honestly, because they deserved honesty, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said as lunch wound down, or to have a relationship with me. I just wanted you to know that I think about you, that I always have, that you were never forgotten. Mom said you sent money, Benjamin said, for college, for everything. It was the least I could do, the only thing I could do. It wasn't nothing, Lily said quietly. It helped, a lot. Mom never had to struggle. We had opportunities because of you. That counts for something. Did it? Marcus wasn't sure. Money was easy. Being present was hard. And he'd chosen easy every single time. But maybe it was enough. Maybe it had to be. Can we do this again? Henry asked as they stood to leave. Meet for lunch? Or coffee? Just sometimes. No pressure. Marcus felt something in his chest crack open. Not quite hope, but close. I'd like that. If you're sure. We're not sure, Oliver said honestly, but life's full of uncertainty. Might as well embrace it. They exchanged numbers, made tentative plans, hugged awkwardly at the door, and then they were gone, back to their lives, and Marcus was left standing on the sidewalk feeling like he'd been given a gift he didn't deserve. The lunches became regular, once a month, sometimes more. Never at holidays. Those belonged to James. But birthdays, random Tuesdays, whenever the kids were in the city, they'd meet, talk, share pieces of themselves. It wasn't fatherhood, but it was something. Some form of relationship that didn't have a name, but felt precious anyway. On their 25th birthday, all 6 kids showed up at Marcus's apartment with a cake. "We have something to tell you," Sophia announced. Marcus's heart sank. This was it. They were done with him. Moving on. He'd known this fragile connection couldn't last. "We talked to Mom," Emma continued, "about maybe inviting you to family things. Not all of them, but some. James is okay with it too." "You'd do that?" Marcus's voice cracked embarrassingly. "You're part of our story," Lily said gently. "A complicated part, but still part, and we've decided that's okay. You messed up, but you've spent 2 decades trying to make it right in the only ways you could. That has to count for something." It did. God, it did. Marcus didn't cry. He'd done enough crying over the years. But he felt something like redemption settle in his bones. Not forgiveness. He'd never fully forgive himself. But acceptance. From them. Maybe even from himself. The first family gathering Marcus attended was a 4th of July barbecue. Terrifying. He stood in James's backyard, surrounded by his children and their families. Some had gotten married. Some had kids of their own. Grandchildren Marcus would never be grandfather to. Evelyn was there. Older now. Gray streaking her honey blonde hair. But still beautiful. Still carrying herself with that quiet grace he remembered. "Hello, Marcus." "Hello, Evelyn." They stood there awkwardly. 25 years of history and hurt between them. Then Evelyn smiled. That crooked smile. "The kids tell me you're trying." "I'm trying." "That's good. Better late than never, I suppose." "I'm sorry for everything. I know I've said it before, but—" "Marcus." Evelyn cut him off gently. "I know. And I forgave you years ago. Not for you, for me. Because holding on to anger was exhausting." She glanced over at James, who was manning the grill. "I got my happy ending. Despite you. Maybe even because of you. If we'd stayed together, I never would have had the kids. Never would have met James. So in a weird way, I'm grateful." The words should have hurt. Instead, they brought relief. "I'm glad that you're happy. I mean it. I know you do." Evelyn studied him. "You look tired, Marcus. Are you happy?" Was he? Marcus thought about his life. His successful career. His comfortable apartment. His monthly lunches with 6 remarkable people he could almost call his children. "I'm content. That's close enough." Evelyn laughed softly. "I suppose it is." They didn't become friends, but they became something. Civil, cordial, 2 people who'd loved each other once and broken each other and somehow survived. Marcus died at 78. Heart attack. Quick, the doctor said. No suffering. At his funeral, all 6 of his not-quite children came, and their children, and Evelyn, elderly but still graceful, and James, who shook Marcus's brother David's hand and said, "He was a complicated man, but he tried. In the end, he really tried." They buried Marcus with a photo in his pocket, the first one Evelyn had sent him. 6 children, smiling at the camera, dressed for a wedding he hadn't attended. On the back, in faded ink, "We're all okay." It wasn't the ending Marcus would have written for himself, but it was the ending he'd earned. And in its own broken, imperfect way, it was enough.